Hello and welcome to another storage slash tardigrade demonstration video. Today we're going to be setting up the S3 Uplink, and we're going to be connecting that to a couple of applications so you can see the power of it. My name is Kevin. I'm going to be walking through this entire process. This is my second video on setting up things for tardigrade. I recommend, and in fact you'll need to go through the process of going through setting up your first object in tardigrade, and that being my first video, because you're going to need the uplink.cli, you're going to need to have signed up and have your API keys, etc. Definitely you're going to have to go through that video. It's in the same format as this one, or you can go through the documentation and get those pieces into play before moving forward with this video. Don't worry, this video will be here for you when you get back. Okay, so I'm at the tardigrade.io website, and under developers, we can find the documentation. And if we scroll down on the left-hand menu, we can find this Uplink S3 gateway under the API and reference. So we'll click on that. Now, I will say that I've gone through this many times, and there's some, seems to have been some changes. I was asking about them in our technical forum, and none of the developers, they're very busy, and so they hadn't gotten back to me in time for this video. But I did get some information from another one of the admins on how these things are set up, and so we'll be able to move forward. But if you follow the instructions specifically without going through this video, you may run into some problems until we update this with the proper explanation and details about what has changed. This is normal, right? The application is in production. It's very new, but there's, they're making improvements to it all the time, and just like any application, and sometimes documentation gets a little out of date, and we have to identify those things and make those changes. And luckily, going through this video, I've identified some of those things. So either that or I'm doing something completely wrong, but I guess we'll find that out together. So, okay. So the Uplink S3 gateway, as you can see, the minimum requirements is 1 CPU and 2 gigabytes of RAM. So you can run this on a Raspberry Pi, and that might be a great place for it if you wanted to keep one running all the time for your use. In this case, we're just going to be setting it up on Windows, and we will walk through that together, but, maybe in the future we'll do another video on setting it up on a Raspberry Pi that you could keep on your network running all the time without occupying your Windows machine. So you will need a Tardigrade satellite account, a project, and an API key. And you will need the Uplink exe, which is all covered in the first video. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to download the gateway binary. This is Windows, so we would download the Windows gateway binary. There's also a Linux, Mac OS, and Docker version. So you'll get a hold of that, and then you'll want to unzip it. And make sure that before you unzip it, you check the properties. Sometimes in Windows, if you are downloading things off of the internet, Windows will natively block them. Let me see if I can show you an example of that. Let me look at my downloads folder. So we have this Uplink AMD 64, etc. If I go to properties, you see here at the bottom, this file came from another computer and might be blocked to help protect this computer. It's always a good idea, if you're going to be working with something that's in a zip file, to unblock it, because otherwise once you unzip it, all the files will be blocked. And then you would have to unblock all of them. Now in this case, there's only one exe inside this folder, so that's not a big deal, but it's just something to know in the future. So you would mark it unblock, apply it, and that would be that. And I did run this while they were blocked, and I didn't really experience any problems. But everybody's Windows installation can be sometimes a little bit different. Security and all these things can be a little bit different. So, best to just unblock them. Okay. So let's go back to our documentation. So I've already downloaded the gateway binary. So I'm going to move down here to the gateway setup. So I'm going to open up PowerShell. And I'm going to shrink, oops, I'm going to shrink that a little bit. That's a little bit too big for us. And where I downloaded it to, I put everything, I put the gateway binary and the uplink in my C users kbaird folder. The documentation will have everything on desktop, and you can have stuff on desktop if you want to follow the online documentation. I tend not to like to get my desktop all cluttered up with icons and all this sort of stuff, so I'm just keeping it in my C users kbaird. Wherever you want to work out of is fine. It's just the two executables initially. So we'll do gateway.exe and setup. And we're going to first select our satellite. Now I'm in the United States, so I'm going to be picking one, but if you're in Europe or Asia, go ahead and pick 2 or 3. Or if you're in some other part of the world, pick whichever one you're closest to. And then I'm going to take my API key. I have a temporary one I set up for this video. And I can right-click to paste it. And then we can make up a passphrase. Just remember what it is. And we're not going to collect information for storage labs because we're not going to be using this long enough for them to find any value out of it. Okay, so the gateway is configured and ready to use. So that's awesome. That was pretty easy. Okay. There's also some instructions here about how to set that up and how to go through things manually. And we'll get right down here to configure using an access grant. Now this part is the part that I think is kind of broken. Well, it's not broken. It's just that I think they changed something. So we basically have this uplink, and we have a command that says share, this site, and then there's some extra commands. Read only. Not after 2 hours, so don't use it after 2 hours, right? So you could open it up for a specific window, keep it open for that amount of time, and then close it. That's just one example. So these are optional, these commands. And if I take this, and in fact, if you take the whole string as well, it doesn't work. But if I take this and I were to paste it in here and hit enter, it says, hey, uplink, invalid access grant format. What? It's true. So this worked for me a couple weeks ago when I was doing the initial run-through of this process, and then it changed through some sort of an update. So what we have to do is we're going to open up Explorer again, and we're going to go to app data folder, which is %app data %, and hit enter on that guy, or return, whatever your keyboard says. And then under the storage folder, under gateway, we have this config. So we'll go ahead and open that in Notepad. And up here we have the serialized access, or name of the access to use. So this guy is what we want. So we're going to copy that guy into our buffer, Control C, and then we'll close this. Okay, and we'll reduce that because we're going to come back there. And we're going to do this command again. However, we're going to say / access, and then we're going to paste that long string. Now, don't hit enter here, because unless you only want this to be read-only. You might, but in order for us to do this demonstration, we're going to make it read-write. So we have to go / read only equal false, and then hit enter. And now we can download, upload, list, delete, etc. No restrictions, and we have our access here. Okay, terrific. So interestingly enough, if you were to not put in the read-only false, you would actually get a link here that shows you how to access it via the web. I didn't really explore what would happen if I run this again without the read-only false, so why don't we see what that does? Yeah, there it is. So there we have the serialized access and the browser URL that I mentioned earlier. However, upload is now disallowed because we didn't add that command. So for some reason it's not showing the two things once I put in the command to make it read only equal false. Interesting. But okay. Good enough for right now. Let's move forward. Something we're going to have to update in the documentation, though, because it completely doesn't make sense. So also, if we go back here and we look at this config, we can see that, the access is still the same, so nothing's changed there. So that's good. All right. Okay, now we got our access grant and configure the gateway as follows. Now, in this documentation, it does not explain what this 14AV, etc. That's actually your API code. So we're going to go ahead and copy this. And we're going to go back to PowerShell. I'm going to paste it. And I'm going to erase this. Copy this. Paste my API in. And go ahead and hit enter. And we get an error. Gateway configuration already exists. Well, that's okay. I mean, for me, you wouldn't get an error. But for me, this configuration already exists because I already created it when I was running through this. So that's fine. We'll move forward with that. You shouldn't have gotten an error. If you do, send me an email, etc. And I'm probably going to redo this video at some point anyway once the documentation has been up to date. But I wanted to get something out there initially so people could see how cool this is. But if you run into a problem at this step, send me an email and I'll fix it up or give you some tips on how to fix it. But it should have just worked for you. It's very straightforward. Like I said, I just happen to already have the configuration set up in my gateway. Let's actually look at that. Maybe I can erase it and recreate it. Right? Why not, right? Okay, so we're in the app data roaming storage gateway. Again, configuration already exists, but it created the configuration, right? It did when I first set this up, when I gave it the API. So I don't know why, but I think what's happened is that the developers said, we're going to go ahead and take the uplink process out. We're going to go ahead and assign you this access grant. And we're going to set up your API because we put that in initially, and we already have it. I guess we're going to find out. Okay, anyway, let's not get lost here. So we can see the config for the config YAML with this command. We can add multiple grants if we want to. We're not going to do that right now. And we're just going to go ahead and we're going to run our gateway. Let's see what happens. Perfect. So we have an internal endpoint here, which we can configure, however we want, but this is just the internal one. So if you want to go into your firewall and modify things in order to, do some NAT translation from the outside in, if you wanted to access it from the outside, etc., you can do all that fun stuff. We have our access key and our secret key. Perfect. So our S3 is running, and we're going to use these keys in order to have some fun with some apps. I'm going to pause the video right here so I can bring up the web page for the apps that we're going to download and tinker with. So I'll be right back. You won't even notice I'm gone. Okay, so one of the cool things we can go ahead and first use with this is the S3 browser, which is a free tool for Windows. And you just go to s3browser.com. And there's a little link here that says download the S3 browser. So we'll go ahead and click on that guy. And we're going to go ahead and open it. We'll accept the agreement. That's fine. That's fine. And it's done. So we're going to say finish. And it's automatically going to start running. Great. So we can call this anything. I'm going to call it Tardigrade S3 Uplink. And we're going to change the account type to S3 compatible storage. And then we're going to go back here and get our endpoint. Let's make sure we don't have any spaces in there. Our access key ID. And our secret access key. It's a secret, except in this demonstration. And then we'll go ahead and add the new account. And we got a failed. Okay, 1 second. Okay, sorry. I had to pause it there for a minute while I debug what was wrong. I forgot something, and I'm going to go over this again. So, manage accounts. We're going to add an account, and we're going to call this our Tardigrade S3 Uplink. And then I'm going to get my I'm going to change my account type to S3 compatible storage. I'm going to copy my endpoint here. I'm going to get my access key. And the secret key. And now you know the secret. And one thing we want to do here is shut off this use secure transfer. Since we're handling everything internally, we're not going over the internet, so we don't need that. And that was the problem where I was getting an error. So we're going to say add new account. Save changes. And we're now connected. So I have a backup folder and a movies folder. And what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a new bucket. And we'll call it test. Oh, sorry. Can't have uppercase letters, so lowercase, great. And there we go, we have our test bucket. And let's go ahead and upload something into that folder. So why don't we just go ahead and put our, just for a quick test, we will go ahead and put in our uplink and gateway executables. And I'm just going to drag them over here. And they are now uploading. They're uploading to the Tardigrade network. And they're done. Just like that. Bada bing, bada bang. And you might be wondering, now, can you actually download them? So let's go ahead and create a new folder here on my in my K Baird folder, and we'll call this one test as well. And we'll go ahead and grab these two guys. Guess we can't drag and drop there, so that's fine. We will download them. Where are they downloading to? Ah, okay, great. So we'll go C, users, K Baird, and then our test folder. We'll select that folder, and we're going to download them. And we have them both. Do they work? Let's go into our new PowerShell, because the other one's running our S3 gateway. Shrink that guy a little bit. We'll go into our test folder. We have two files, so let's go ahead and let's just bring up the help. Oh yeah, we have to do the uplink. Will that work, or do you think I need the .exe? That worked. And we'll do the same for gateway. So that was really quick and easy, right? I was able to upload files, download files, and I have a nice little S3 browser that I can connect to whenever I want, as long as my S3 uplink is running. So how cool is that, right? It's like a little transfer agent. And it's free, and you can use it as much as you want. There is a pro version, and you can play around with it and everything, but you can, get what you need back and forth really easily. So that's kind of cool. Now I'll show you another application. This is not a freeware application, but let's go ahead and bring up this guy. It does have a trial. It's the Arc Backup, and this is good for Windows as well as Mac. It works pretty good. So we'll go ahead and download this. We'll download it for Windows. And we'll go ahead and run it. Hit install. And we'll launch it. So we're going to make a little trial here. Let's go ahead and use my storage account. Okay. And I think the first thing we're going to do is we're going to configure a storage location. So here we have a whole bunch of different ones, but we're going to do this S3 compatible server. And we have our URL, so we'll put in HTTP 127.0.1:7777. Region doesn't matter for us. And then we're going to want our access key. And our secret key. You might think I had memorized all those digits by now, but no. We'll hit continue. And we're going to go ahead and use the existing bucket because I already have one called backup. But you can see that it's already generated a list. So it's already connected and found everything that I have, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to go ahead and select backup. I'm going to click save. Great. And then we'll go ahead and create a new backup plan. And let's say we're going to, we can back up a network drive, all drives, or select files to backup. Let's just do a select files. We don't want to back up all of C. So why don't we just back up what's in our storage folder? Let's see what's in there first, in case we have to put something in it. Nope, we just have a few files here from doing some different testing. So this is a good bunch of junk that we can use. So we'll uncheck that guy and uncheck that guy, and we'll just select him. But you can, back up your whole machine if you like with this tool. It's pretty neat. There's a bunch of options as well that you can select. Run every hour, etc. It's only going to take things that have been updated or changed, email report. You can look through this whole app, but we're basically just showing its current compatibility with our S3 Uplink. I have to choose a location, so we're going to put it right here in our backup folder that we created. And we can also encrypt it with a password. Okay. And we're saved. We'll give it a moment. Now you'll notice here down on the left it says my trial is 3 days left. That's because I've been working on this for a while. The normal trial is about 30 days, and you can decide if you want to buy it or not. But this is just being used as a demonstration. There are other backup tools out there that can use the S3 Uplink. You can go online and search around and see what you can find. And, the type of application that you want to use, you can find many things that are S3 compatible that are out there. This is, a very, very cool, very powerful little tool that allows you to have, complete S3 compatibility, minus some, we do have a list of things that are not compatible, but it's very minor. And you can find that on the documentation website. For the most part, everything I've tried with it has worked great. So here we have the backup now. So I'm going to go ahead and press that. And it is going to scan, and then it will start processing the files. Now, I'm not exactly sure if this application does any sort of compression. It might. I don't know if it's only going to be looking for the differences, etc. But as you can see, it's moving along quite quickly. It did get an error, so let's see what that is. It's okay. It couldn't load. It couldn't load one of the DLLs that it was backing up. Couldn't make a what do they call that? Shadow copy, basically, of this DLL. That may be something that's in use, but that's fine. It's not an incompatibility with our S3 Uplink. It's just something, Windows file system type of situation. But otherwise, it backed up. So let's look. Let's hop back to our S3 Explorer, and let's look inside our backup folder. I accidentally uploaded those things to the wrong folder. And then let's compare that to what we have over here. Oh, that's true. This is all encrypted. But this is the backup. This is the backup set. I don't know why I was thinking it was going to be straight files. But see, you can tell that it's there. And then we could... you'll see that it has a GUID of sorts that it uses, so it knows which ones it's backed up, etc. These two guys, let's go ahead and delete them. And those are gone. And we have our backup. And in terms of doing a restore, let's see if we can restore it to a different folder. So we got to decrypt it. Okay. And let's just get one file. Let's just get this identity.exe. So let's select that. We can say original location or choose a location. I have a funny story really quickly about original location. So back when I worked at another job and I was running a backup, we had twin servers. So we had a server that was running our production environment. This was not for storage. This was a different company. And we had another server that was our backup server. So if that primary server had gone down, we could, hardware failure, for instance, we could turn on the secondary server and continue to serve production. So I had a backup tape, because this is back when we had tape in order to perform backup, and I had inserted it into the backup server. And one of the questions was restore to original location. And so you would think that it would, on that server, install it to the C drive, etc., where it would write everything out like it was on the original server. But no, what it actually had done was it wrote over the network. It went over the network and found the original location and started restoring data over production data. Whoops! So we had a little bit of a problem that day. But lesson learned. I don't like to use that anymore, so I'm going to choose my location. And we're going to go ahead and put it in our users. K Baird folder. We'll say OK. and we'll hit restore. Good. It's done. Now let's see if it's there. And there it is. It actually recreated the folder structure. I'm sure there's things with, this ARQ program that you could modify so it doesn't do that, but it did download the identity application. And so you can see that it works, and it can bring in your entire file system, all that good stuff. So that's it for this demonstration. You can play with your S3 Uplink now and find other cool tools to use. If you find something really interesting, please feel free to send me an email. I am knowledge@storage, storj.io. And I'd be interested what you find, or if you have something that you personally wrote and you want to get the word out there about it, please let me know. I do plan on updating this video in the future when our documentation has been updated, and I can include some of these additional applications in the video, as well as future videos that I work on. We'll be making more of these videos. We have some open discussions. I would like to create a video where we're moving things around via a website, so you can see the power of storage in using that. I also kind of wanted to show how it could be used for something like a podcast, very similar. And, lots of other things that you can do with storage is going to be coming up, as well as a lot of our other technology that we're working on to constantly improve and make this a better product. So again, thanks for listening and watching, and we'll talk to you next time in the Tardigrade /storage video.